What's going on, everyone? Today, 53% of the S&P 500 closed down in the red, and there was some pretty exciting price action all across the board. As we all know, Palantir stock took quite the beating after their CEO announced that he's selling $1 billion worth of shares, among some other news. But at the same time, we have gold prices running past their record highs, as Trump said his administration is going to Fort Knox to make sure all the gold's there. But in today's video, we also have a handful of very interesting but also exciting charts to look at, showing what the market normally does in situations like this one. Either way, there's one more trading day left of the week. We have a lot of great setups heading into tomorrow, and we also have a $1.8 million big money trade that you won't want to miss. So besides that, Tom, let's get to it.
Yeah, the SPY did not continue up to new all-time highs today like it did yesterday morning, that's for sure. Whenever the market opened up today, we saw a pretty steep sell-off actually hit here on the SPY. I'm surprised that you said there was only 53% of the S&P 500 down in the red, because I will say the stuff that is red is pretty deep, right? Like Palantir, over 5%, Oracle, over 3%, Amazon, Walmart, Costco, a lot of big stocks were down today, but I will say Palantir is definitely the one that still stands out, Mike. We were watching this one fall off, especially around the end of the day yesterday, on a lot of news with Alex Karp, the Pentagon budget cuts, and then today it opened, it really continued, fell under even $100 at one point today. Now, it did end up closing up around 105 to 106, recovering up to around that opening price, which I guess was a pretty good sign to see. But at the end of the day, what a great continuation down, and I know a lot of people were killing it on Palantir put options this morning, as all of this news just insinuated a ton of selling pressure.
I know, Tom. It was a crazy morning for this one, and as we look at this stock now, it's good to see it back above the $100 support level, but at the same time, the price action is still pretty nasty. So looking at this one for tomorrow, what are the key levels to watch?
I really like how this morning, especially in pre-market, it was bouncing around $110. And whenever the market opened, this is really like where the sell-off started to hit, or just like right before the market opened. And whenever I'm looking at 110, I really want to see a solid breakout of there if you're looking for a recovery. And I'm going to use that as resistance along with 107. We can see that 107 resulted in a lot of touches in pre-market as well. And even around the end of day today, rejected right there. I think that for tomorrow, Mike, the worst thing for Palantir would be if it just chopped around in this zone, right? That would obviously be the worst thing. Hopefully we can get back under 100, and then even the low of today down around 95. That would be a good move to the downside. Just continue the overall directional move here.
No doubt, and one of my favorite things about Palantir is that, generally speaking, it normally moves pretty strongly. I was looking at some of the 105 strike put options over the past couple days, and yesterday they had a low of $4 per contract and a high today of $1,020 per contract. So that just gives you a little glimpse of how much Palantir's options can move when this stock has momentum, and it certainly does right now. But the key thing is adapting with these trend changes, because as we saw from today at open, there was a ton of selling pressure, but after that initial sell-off, we did see the bulls come in pretty hard here. So this is one where you really have to adapt with, because if you don't, you're just going to get ran over. So either way, keep this one close on watch. There are a handful of key levels that this stock is at right now, and it normally moves in a pretty strong way. For me, I would like to see Palantir pop up a little bit more, still maybe closer to that 116, 117 area for a potential swing short position. But at the end of the day, we just have to continue to adapt to new information as it comes in, and it's a stock to definitely keep on the radar.
Yeah, and whenever the selling pressure hits, it can really start to snowball, and we can start to see a lot of bigger moves start to come into play. I know a lot of people were really watching this gap on Palantir. I'm definitely watching over the next couple of weeks. If we start to fall under $100 again, I'll be watching for this gap to fill down to around this $85 support, where there was a pretty good peak in the past. And I'm not necessarily looking for the gap to fill, but at the end of the day, that is a solid support that I will watch if Palantir Palantir does break down a little bit. But Mike, I know like while Palantir was down in the dumps today, we still have gold in the background continuing to run higher somehow. You know, going to the GLD daily chart, it's still moving up. And I saw a crazy headline today with gold where Trump is going to be essentially auditing Fort Knox to make sure the gold is there. And I found that to be a pretty funny headline because where the hell would it go?
I don't even want to know, but looking at the price of gold right now, it actually hit a high of $2,954 per ounce, you know, partially off of this news, but also partially off of its just existing momentum and, you know, strong buying pressure that's been going into it. So depending on when this audit happens and the result of it, you know, it definitely has potential big implications for gold. But at the same time, I think it's in everyone's best interest if there isn't a surprise in this sense, because if it turns out, you know, some of the gold isn't there, then we might have bigger problems than we think.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, at first I was like, okay, how could this happen? Like, where could the gold be? Has this ever happened before? And Mike, I know you actually ended up finding a pretty funny article from the past where they ended up fleecing some people with some nickel here.
Yeah, so talking more about this, in just 2023, the London Metal Exchange actually had a situation where bags of what were supposed to be nickel ended up being bags of stones. Now, this was, you know, again, overseas, but I guess it does go to show that, you know, when you do have, you know, precious commodities, there definitely can be some suspicious things that happen. But either way, keep a close eye on GLD. It is moving in a pretty strong way right now. And it's also definitely worth keeping a close eye on individual gold mining companies like ticker symbol GOLD, which just recently reported earnings and had a pretty good reaction as well. It's uptrending pretty strongly. And while, you know, this doesn't follow specifically the price of gold, you know, it follows companies that mine gold, which, you know, definitely, you know, have a lot to gain, you know, with just broadly increasing gold prices.
Yeah, definitely. And I know one of the more popular mining companies even reported in the short term, that's ticker symbol NEM or Newmont. They reported tonight. It looks like they beat revenue and EPS off the initial glance at the earnings report. And so far, the price action's pretty good in after hours. So we might be setting up pretty well for some of these gold stocks for the next couple days. I really like GDX myself, Mike, in the gold sector. It looks like this one's getting pretty close to its recent high and getting pretty primed for a breakout here. I know, though, that the overall market hasn't really been as exciting as I think people would have hoped for on this overall high break this week. I will say it was definitely exciting yesterday afternoon as like some of that FOMC minutes news started hitting and the SPY started breaking out. But I feel like every time that the SPY gets a breakout going lately, we start seeing a big rejection come in. And I think this might have to do with some of the seasonality of February, Mike. Like, we are posting active highs, but it's only by like $1 or $2, and the SPY comes tumbling down. And, you know, we're in that second half of February where historically it's pretty shaky.
That's the thing. Like, we don't have that same level of true euphoria that we had just a few months ago. So definitely keep that in mind. But Tom, if February can close green, we do have some favorable market stats on our side.
Yeah, we definitely do. Now, this one actually blew my mind, guys. So I gotta say this. Whenever we start to look at this S&P 500 statistic that we just found, it's looking at January and February. So if both of these months close green, we can see here that the rest of the year ends up being green 93.1% of the time, and the full calendar year ends up being green 96.4% of the time on all examples going back to 1950. And what's even crazier to me with this stat for the full calendar year is that the 1 year where it was technically red, it was really like more break even. So it's kind of like it on the full calendar year. It's almost like a given statistic here. But I love stats like this, Mike. I know that we're in the second half of February and it might look a little gloomy because of that, but if we do end up having a green February, that's pretty good implications for the rest of the year, and those average percent moves are pretty high.
Definitely. So yeah, we'll definitely be on the edge of our seats then to see how February closes. And so far, so good, but there's definitely some work left to do to close out this month in a strong way. But looking more at SPY right now in terms of levels for tomorrow and just areas to keep on watch, what are the levels to watch?
Yeah, the SPY pulled back this morning in a pretty hard way and started to even break under some pretty big supports. I was really eyeing up like 608 as a major area of support for today, and SPY ended up even breaking that, falling down to around 607, where it actually triple bottomed throughout the day today. So I think for tomorrow, 607 has to be on watch. I've been watching 608 for a while. SPY bounced there a couple times today too. You could almost say it's like a 607 to 608 range right now. If we do see 607 give out, I'm watching 606 to 605, and then even more especially over the next couple weeks, Mike, is this huge $600 level. If we keep falling like we fell today, this $600 level will be coming back into play a lot quicker than people might anticipate. But for tomorrow, that triple bottom from today is definitely important. And as far as resistance, 611 to me is the most important level to watch. We saw a lot of touches and rejections off that level over the past couple days, and this morning when the SPY started selling off under that, it's really where the sell-off kind of began.
Very interesting, and I definitely agree. That 611 area is definitely worth keeping on the radar, and even when you go past that up to 612, it's not necessarily an easy level to break, so definitely keep these areas in mind for SPY. And another thing to keep in mind, as we've been saying, you don't have to force trades on SPY if you don't love the price action, and quite honestly, we're just seeing better movement with individual stocks right now, whether it be companies like Palantir, Intel, TEM, Robinhood, HIMS, or anything like that, or even if you shift over to like commodities like gold and silver, there's much smoother price action, which oftentimes just makes for like better just like setups in general. So keep that in mind. But while we are talking about the overall market, I think it's also worth bringing up where we are at right now in a much broader sense. As we can see by looking at this chart, the red line represents the current bull trend that we're in, and the other lines represent other historical bull trends. At this point in time, we can see that there is normally a fair amount of just chop and consolidation within like the second to third year of the bull trend. I think history shows us pretty strongly that even some of the greatest, strongest bull trends throughout history do have periods of slowdown. And, the pattern is that it normally happens around this part of the cycle. So take from this what you want, but we just like to show you the historical data. And of course, you can come to your own conclusion.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy how a lot of these bull runs, like especially as they continue on throughout the years, they get pretty crazy, right? And even in the short term, some of these better bull runs, it is wild how they do start to see a lot of shakiness around the second to third year. So it is something to just, maybe keep in the back of your mind. If we do start to see some shakiness with the overall market, maybe just think about that. And also just don't forget, Trump is out here creating a lot of crazy headlines. Even today, Mike, I mean, it was headline after headline after headline. It might not necessarily be market moving stuff every time, but I mean, we're talking Zelensky stuff, tariffs, and just all types of headlines throughout the day. And be ready for more headlines, especially involving stuff like gold and tariffs and a lot of market moving events like war.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we all know that when Trump does say some like important things, especially like on the tariff front, it has market moving potential. And honestly, this like first 30 days hasn't had like too much like insane like Trump specific movement, but I don't think that is something that can be expected throughout these next 4 years. So it's definitely a very exciting time to be a trader. But looking more at some action for tomorrow, Tom, we do have some economic data set to release 30 minutes after open with the existing home sales data. This won't be like too crazy, but it definitely does have market moving potential if it comes in outside expectations. So keep a close eye on the news at that time. And we also have a handful of earnings reports, but nothing too market moving.
Yeah, the earnings reports tomorrow morning are pretty lackluster, I would say. I mean, unless you guys like watching U.S. Cellular, right? I don't know, oil states down there. I'm sure somebody will find some random one in the comments that they like, and definitely let me know if you are watching anything specific for tomorrow in the comments down below. I will be interested to read some of those, but I'm just kind of glad that we can focus on this overall price action because that sell-off was so crazy today that I think that we just need to really focus on the overall market and the bigger tech stocks out there.
All right, well, let's get right to it then. A stock that is definitely on my radar is Walmart, and it is to the downside. They reported earnings today that certainly weren't good enough to truly wow investors, and their stock fell over 6.5%. Looking at Walmart, especially on the daily chart, they have been crushing it, but they're getting to the point where not only are they overextended, but their short-term momentum is also shifting. They also broke below a key support at $100 a share, so this one is definitely on my bearish radar. I'm looking for like an earnings continuation play here where we could see like a potential fade lower over the next, 3 to 4 trading days. Walmart is definitely on my bearish radar, where the more pressure it puts on its lows, the better and stronger the setup becomes.
That was pretty brutal today with their earnings. I know a lot of people, even CNBC, like they were throwing headlines out there kind of attributing the overall market drop today to this Walmart news. So definitely a pretty big earnings report to come in negative for one of the bigger retailers in the country here, Mike. With my first setup for tomorrow, I'm actually looking at Pepsi, which is, I guess, another safer stock in a way, kind of like in that value type of sector. But it's up 2.26% today. Now, Pepsi's kind of on the opposite end of things from Walmart. They've actually been dipping a lot in the short term. They're starting to bounce off support and come up in a pretty good way. And something that I like is that they actually have moderate to even like bad correlation to the SPY. So I think that'll be advantageous for Pepsi over the next couple months as it starts to come up off of this dip. And I'm definitely going to look for a little bit of a shift, maybe some money coming out of maybe some of these inflated growth stocks or even tech stocks, and maybe some money flowing back into some of these undervalued value stocks in a way, kind of like Pepsi here. But either way, I like the double bottom. It's not necessarily a play for tomorrow, but there is a lot of momentum in the short term as well.
All right, good to know, and I will also keep this one on watch. But we can't move any further without talking about SLV. This follows silver prices. Silver hasn't been as explosive as the price of gold, but it has definitely been trending in a pretty nice and steady way. I know I've mentioned silver a handful of times in recent videos, and while it hasn't truly gone parabolic yet, it's definitely uptrending in a pretty nice way, and it's worth keeping on the radar. SLV is one of those setups where you're not going to see giant, up or down 8% moves on a daily basis, but you can see some pretty good price action over the course of multiple days and multiple weeks. SLV is definitely still on my bullish radar, and I would love to see a retest that ideally that $32 area, which is pretty close to where its recent high was back in October of last year. It definitely helps a lot that gold is not only at record highs, but it has been consistently pushing past its record highs for, weeks at this point. And that definitely does help the whole industry. So SLV is on my bullish radar.
Yeah, and SLV's been sitting here at resistance for a while, and I know a lot of people were maybe looking for that resistance to hold up, but we've seen a lot of stuff in the short term, just a lot of good bullish flows into these metals in general, and it's good to see this resistance starting to break, nice and consistent, and I know it's not as explosive, as some of these other stocks, like you said, but I definitely agree, Mike. Nice and consistent action to the upside here. With my next setup, I'm looking at JP Morgan to the downside. I noticed today the banks had a pretty bad drop. Even if we go look at yields today, like US 10Y, they were falling off a little bit. I'm actually watching for JP Morgan to continue on this downtrend. They've been flying up in the short term. I've actually been loving them to the upside, but I've been kind of waiting for this trend to shift. And today, I would say this was definitely a big shift in the price action, to say the least. And going over to the Bookmap, there is a huge stack of buyers at 265 in the short term. For tomorrow, I'm definitely going to watch for 265 to break down. It's right around the low of day today. If you were watching the Bookmap intraday here, right around, now that I'm on Central Time, okay, so right around 11:30 Central Time here, where I'm circling on the chart, you can tell right where these buyers popped in, and once the price action on JP Morgan got close to this buy wall, we saw JP Morgan start to pop back up and hold this as support. This could have been a good low target on the day. Nonetheless, I will be watching for a good breakdown tomorrow. Shout out to Bookmap for the X-ray vision, and it would have even helped if you were like an intraday scalper today looking for those targets like I mentioned.
Love to see it, Tom. So good stuff there, and it's definitely one to keep on watch. But besides that, we are all clear for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have CrowdStrike to the downside.
CRWD. If CrowdStrike can break back under $430, then keep watching it back down. It ended up closing down 3%, but it had a lot worse day than that at the low of day today.
All right, with the next one, we have QBTS to the upside.
Yeah, the quantum stocks kind of came back a little bit today. If D-Wave Quantum, QBTS can break above $7.50, just above the high of day, then keep watching them to the upside.
All right, and then with the last one, we have LUV also to the upside.
Yeah, Southwest Airlines were covered up a little bit today. If they can break out above $30.75, right around recent resistance, then watch them to the upside as well.
Sounds great. So we have LUV, QBTS, and CRWD all on watch for potential momentum plays tomorrow. These setups are only plays if they break through the levels listed. The stronger and more consistent these stocks move, the better these setups become. As always, have stop losses. Do not, never enter any trade without one, because if you do that, you're just not trading the right way, and you're just kind of like setting yourself up for failure. You have to be able to clearly define your risk for any trade you ever take for multiple reasons. Not only in like a mathematical profit and loss sense, but also for just like, just to think clearly about trades, because if you enter a trade and you don't know where your stop loss is, you'll just be left, consistently asking yourself the question, when do you exit? And that's, not something you want to have to do. So have a stop loss, especially with momentum style plays like this one. Feel free to learn on how to set stop losses in the key lessons channel in the StockedUp Discord, which is the link down below. But besides that, Tom, we are all clear for today's $1.8 million big money trade, and we are looking at ticker symbol XOM. Today, the big money bought the 115 strike calls that expire on December 19th of 2025. This is a $1.8 million trade. XOM has been moving pretty well in the short term, and it's also been making higher lows, which is great to see. Looking at this trade, energy prices have been holding steady in the short term, which is good to see. These call options have a fair amount of time to them, and they are out of the money. So the big money trader here is expecting like a fair move over, the remainder of 2025. Looking at the setup, I like the reward to risk here, but this setup can only be justified entering if the trader is willing to give this setup the time it needs. If someone is looking to day trade this tomorrow, if you have your own strategy, that's fine, but that's not what the big money trader here is doing.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think that Zom's actually in a really good overall setup here on like the daily chart. I like how it's holding support, creating those higher lows, like you said. Whenever you zoom out on the daily chart, it's even holding a crazy trend line that has actually been really consistent here. We've seen a lot of big money trades on Zom over the years. It's definitely an oil stock that we follow quite a bit, right? So I've been following this one a long time. This is one of the most consistent trends that I've seen in a while. And at the end of the day, it's an interesting big money play, being $1.8 million. My only slight concern is that it's retesting this short-term resistance right around 113. But I will say it's the third test. It's holding the trend and support really well. I could see this breaking, especially if we see crude oil continue to hold. Crude oil's been actually dipping over the past few weeks, but over the past, like, I would say week, it's been starting to base a little bit more and hold this $70 support in a great way. If it keeps holding 70, these oil stocks are probably going to end up following it to the upside like we've been seeing over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, so either way, let's keep a close eye on ExxonMobil, but also the energy industry as a whole. But I'm pretty excited for the market tomorrow. There's been a lot of great price action in general this week, especially with individual stocks, so we should see some pretty good opportunities. If you guys are new to the channel, definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. Every single day, we cover the most important news, earnings, charts you'd never otherwise see, and basically everything you have to know about the stock market in normally 20 to 25 minutes or less. And if you are into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below to get inside the stocked up trading floor. Today was a pretty exciting day, especially with SurgeBot, as we had some Palantir put options that popped up by 341%, Hood put options that popped up by 338%, SoFi put options that popped up by 214%, Dash put options that popped up by 145%, and yesterday was even better with some HIMS call options that popped up by 527%. You get full access to Surge, the big money trades. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, join our weekly live events, and literally everything else you could need for short-term trading. So if you want in, check out that link down below, and Tom and I will talk to you soon. But we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Yi, in the stocked up trading floor, who had a great post today. As we can see right here, he did very well, and he said, without you guys and Stocked Up Trading Group, I'd never be able to make what I made today on Palantir. So huge shout out to Yi. Keep up the great work going forward, and it's awesome to see posts like this one. Besides that, we have one more trading day left of the week. Let's end the week on a positive note. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it.